Nice etude. I think it's really one of the really pretty ones in the book. Okay, some of the goals, and if you have a handout, I'm just going to read some of this stuff here, is the study, and of course, long musical lines and breath control plays a real important part. Learning to play very legato with the various ornamentations, such as the trills and the grace notes and all. And I think for some students, learning to do the subdivided rhythms will be real important. Maybe having some kind of chart where they can cause, I mean, there's even I think a 64th note somewhere in there, and so they'll want to know how to do some of the rhythms that they probably haven't seen before, and of course to try to play as controlled and musical as you can. Some of the techniques, I think the students should play it in 8, mark special fingerings, play as smoothly as possible, keep the air going, and using a light tone where they're not slapping at the reed. Okay, and phrasing, I look for phrase direction and melodic contour, and sometimes it's what's printed in the music, and sometimes it's as you feel the line should go. If you happen to have a copy of this book, there's a nice glossary in the back, which they need to look into the words. Okay, some of the fingerings. I noticed a few places in measure 5 and measure 26. Basically, the clarinet, if you see a student sliding on the keys, that's not generally what you want to do unless you've painted yourself into a corner, or sometimes there's some passages where you have to slide. But there are none in here, and so we want to alternate the fingers. Some notes to watch out for. I've taught this piece for many years. It seems like when we get to the A sharp in measure 4, they play something else. And so watch out for that. And also the last note in measure 7, that note is missed quite a bit as well. Okay, some information on clarinets. And I think these are real important to making the clarinet play well. If you have leaks on the instrument, it's not going to play very well. And sluggish keys, bent rods. A lot of times I've noticed students don't like to use court grease very much. And maybe yours do, but as soon as you try to muscle the thing together, then you bent one of the rods. Another thing is the mouthpiece. This mouthpiece is oxidized a little bit here, but if in the inside of the mouthpiece, if it's dirty, I mean, it needs to be cleaned once in a while. And if you give it the smell test, and it smells like lunch from the last month. Sometimes you'll want to look at the reed and you'll pull this off and the reed won't come off. You have to hammer it a little bit because the reed lives on the mouthpiece, and you don't want to do that, so they should keep that. I think it's probably good to soak the mouthpiece in a solution of vinegar and water, perhaps a little bit, or maybe hydrogen peroxide and water, something to, and then clean the inside out as well as you can. If you pull something through the mouthpiece, you don't want it to be, too big. And this swab that I use to clean the instrument works pretty well as long as it's not too big. This is some kind of nylon or some kind of silky nylon happening. Okay, key action. Sometimes you'll take an instrument like the A key, and they can't do that. And it goes, because the tension of the spring. Well, if that's the key that's too hard to push, every time you push that, the instrument pushes against your lip and squeezes the reed, and so I think the tension should be about the same on most of the keys, and especially on the A key. Okay, suspension of the instrument. Of course, the thumb. You have different gadgets that are invented, including neck straps and whatnot. I have this is an older clarinet, so I put one of these pencil grips on here. It helps me hold it better. Some people like using the knees for stability of the instrument, which is not possible in marching band, but when you're seated, it works pretty well. And something I can't play without anymore is a mouthpiece patch. So I think that's really important. You get a mouthpiece patch, different makers of these. Okay, I listed 4 of the more prominent instrument makers. You know, I'm playing a Buffet R13. Everyone has their favorite one, but I think those are probably four really prominent makers. Apologies to those other makers who are also prominent. Mouthpieces. It seems like the Van Doren mouthpieces tend to be really pretty good. I think the 5RV lyre is probably used a whole lot. Some people like the M13 lyre and the newer M30. I own all these, and I like all of them. And so, depending on your student and the mouthpiece and the setup, and you know, might try some of those. I noticed that Rico has just come out with a new mouthpiece, just recently, and I tried one just a few minutes ago, and they played really quite well. So that it's not like the old Rico company that you didn't like in past years. They're doing a lot of really good stuff now, and I'm not plugging them because it's just that's what I've observed. Okay, as far as barrels, the standard barrel on this instrument is 66 millimeters. So if you have a student that's playing consistently flat or sharp on like all the notes, then it might be that the barrel is the wrong length. You can buy those in different reeds. I think it's good for the students to have more than one or two reeds. You know, we've all been there. The student says, "I broke my reed." Well, get another one out. No, that was my last one. You know, and so I think it's a real good idea to have something, some of the reed guards or some of the products to put reeds on. Keep more than one reed in your case. Reeds that I personally like the best. The Van Doren, the blue box, the regular ones, the V12 I like. Some people like a lot. If you're a clarinet player, I'm sure you have your own favorites. The new Rico purple box reeds seem to be pretty consistent, although a little softer than Van Doren. And those are just some suggested sizes. Depends on the mouthpiece and the student. If you do get a bunch of reeds, so you mix them up, sometimes it's a good idea to number them or to put them in some kind of case where you can identify which reed is which. That way you can rotate your reeds. I like to soak and rub the reed, and I do that several times before really breaking it into the rotation. Sometimes reeds are more consistent than they used to be. When I first started, the reeds would especially be heavier on the left side, and so you were getting the sandpaper 400 grit usually, or reed brush or reed knife, and trying to work the left side down. That's not as true anymore. I think you'll find a lot more consistency, but it may be that helps. Okay, tone production, just basics of playing clarinet. The chin needs to be pretty flat, and the lip needs to be a firm cushion. You know, it has to have some flexibility, of course, but it's not a soft embouchure like, say, the saxophone, which is in my opinion, a totally different embouchure. Firm corners. Some students don't take enough reed in their mouth, and therefore their sound's not a big enough sound. If you take too much reed in your mouth, it's going to squawk at you. So those are some things to consider. The right thumb needs to wedge the clarinet into the mouth so that it stays pretty stable and doesn't move. Teeth forward. Most people need to move their teeth forward. You blow a little bit of air very fast. Otherwise, you'll have an unfocused sound. And I've already mentioned the mouthpiece patch. Any questions on that so far, comments? Okay.